Yes, we are live, which is working wonderfully, and welcome. Welcome to today's panel discussion brought to you by Sacred You, our spiritual community. And of course, I'm Sophia Soul, who I have the honor of being the co-creator of Sacred You. And today, the real honor, the actual excitement of being the facilitator for this very interesting panel discussion that I really want to know about. Echoes within of unveiling the secrets of cellular memory. This has been something that has been close to me for quite some time. I really want to go deep into the difference between just our memory and what our cells remember. And today we have some fantastic guest panelists with us who are going to share their experts, their wisdom, their knowledge, all about cellular memory. Because, like I said, it's a very interesting concept of how our cells remember the past, and then how they create, or can they create, situations to keep going back to those memories. And we'll go into that much more. But before we go into all our conversations, let us introduce our wonderful panelists. And with us today, we have the beautiful Sue Rumack, calling in all the way from Canada, Toronto. Sue, would you like to say hello and tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'd love to. Thank you for having me on this panel. This is something I found absolutely fascinating, cellular memory. My name is Sue Rumack. I am an empath trainer. I work with all kinds of different modalities. I work with empaths who have a lot of problems with cellular memory, all the trauma in their lives that come back to haunt them through cellular memory, not just their own, but ancestrally as well. I work with highly sensitive people, with empaths. I'm also a life coach, and I adore the work that I do. I'm also host on Sacred You for Life Force Activators. A lovely tribe of people who get very excited about life. That's me, and on to the next lady.
Thank you, Sue. And we're going to learn more about the Life Force Activators tribe, because I really do
Sure.
agree with you. It is an exciting tribe to be in, to learn all about life and energy. And what about Charlotte? What about your beautiful self? Tell us a little bit about you.
So I'm Charlotte Mitchell, and I'm a medical herbalist, and both Western actually and Chinese herbalist, and also a healer, an author, and I have practiced all around the world. And yes, like Sue, I love what I do.
Thank you. Looking forward to getting to know more about you as we go on. Beverly, who's also calling in from Canada, the other side. Tell us about yourself, Beverly.
Hi, thank you, Sophia. Yeah, I'm Beverly Akhurst. I am the owner of Ocean Breath Yoga and Rhythm of Your Life. I coach and facilitate holistic well-being. My focus is on getting people to understand the language of themselves, not what everyone else tells them, but to understand the language that their body speaks to them in this lifetime, so that they can start to learn their unique and very individual way of being, and how they eat, how they move, what sleep is required by them, what kind of space would serve them best, even where they live in the world, all the things that kind of drag us away when we follow the shoulds rather than the needs. And there's lots more to it, but I think that's a good start.
Thank you for that. Now, new panelist, Dr. Simi, who's joining us for the very first time. I'm really excited to have you here, Dr. Simi. Would you like to introduce yourself? And I'd love to know also what interests you about joining our panel today.
Thank you for having me. It's really a great honor to be able to be here. And I'm a family practice physician by training. I practice mind-body medicine now, and I'm also a medical intuitive. And in the last decade of me practicing mind-body medicine, I've realized that 100% of the time it's an emotional cause behind our physical illnesses. So our cells respond to our emotions, to our thoughts, and that's the passion I bring forward today, and that's what interests me. And inadvertently, I found every time, if the person was willing to work on their emotions, I've had a 100% success rate as far as healing. And the rate limiting factor is the patient, how deeply they're able to go into their emotions and their memories. So yes, body definitely keeps a score, and that's what we're here for, and love this topic.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And if I may ask you the first question to go into a little bit more of what you're saying, that the body does keep a score. Can you really explain for you what is your difference between cellular memory and just our normal memory that everyone talks about, knows about? How does the body keep a score?
Beautiful question. The body keeps the score in a way that you won't consciously know it unless you're bringing your awareness to it, unless you become present to it. Unlike the conscious memory, our body is no different, and it's actually part of the unconscious and the subconscious mind. And the body keeps a score, and I can only share, I love sharing examples because I feel like it gives us a better insight into how things work. So I will share. So I was sex trafficked between the ages of 6 months and 12 years. And I had no recollection of the memories because I was only 6 months old when the abuse started. However, as a grown-up, I'm assuming there were some animals involved, and it's okay. It's about us getting through our trauma and thriving as a result. And I couldn't figure out why I didn't like the sniffing of the dogs. I wasn't scared of them. It's not like I hated them. I just kept my distance. I didn't like their sniffing. And that was my body's response. It just tensed up every time a dog came near me. So if we begin to pay attention to what is our body doing when we're around someone or something that's causing us discomfort, I think that's the beginning of how the body begins to speak to us, if we can be present to that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, and especially sharing your memories. Thank you for that. And I'd just like to honor you for doing that and for being here. Thank you.
Thank you for holding space. Yeah.
No problems. And what about you, Sue? How would you answer that for you? What is your difference between cellular memory and our normal memory?
That's a really good question because they're tied together. They aren't one and the same, but they are parts of each other, in my opinion. So, for example, my grandmother had an experience, right? And her experience might have been traumatic. Now, she never told me that experience. And yet in my lifetime, if I encounter a similar fragrance or a tone of voice or music or the change in the air, my cells remember her trauma because her cells have been passed down to mine. They work off of the same recipe, the same template. So in my life, if the traumas that I have experienced are going to relate back to the coding in my cells, and that's as detailed as I'm going to get into that right now. So they, in my opinion, cellular memory, generations back, epigenetically, or cellular memory from when I was a child to now, a trauma that or a wonderful thing that might have happened to me then, can still inform my reactions now. My reactions could be emotional. They could also be chemical. In other words, an event will trigger a chemical reaction in my brain that then spreads down through my nervous system that causes me to react in certain ways. So I hope that answers it without me getting off topic or off track too much.
It answers it wonderful, but it brings up so many more questions and so
Of course it does.
wonderful conversation. So I'm really going to enjoy that. Thank you for that. But what I get from what you're saying is that, the cells, the memories of our past generations, like our mothers and our grandmothers, we carry the trauma, we carry those memories within ourselves. Because of course, everyone knows, well, I think everyone knows that, obviously we were as an egg in our mother's womb when she was in her mother's womb, and we can pick up the memories from that. Is that what you're meaning, Sue? Is that what you're
What I'm saying is that as events happen to us emotionally, it triggers a chemical change in the protein of the cells.
Yes.
And that chemical change to the protein, it's the protein that becomes part of that template of how the genes reproduce. And so we're carrying a genetically enhanced gene from generation to generation, and each generation's experience around those remembered events changes the gene again and again and again. So it isn't just what it was when my grandmother experienced it, it's what it was when my mother experienced the same situation, and it is what I experience, and my daughters and my granddaughter. So, and my grandsons as well. It isn't just passed from woman to woman, it's passed through all of our children.
Yes.
So I hope that explains my perspective a little more. And if I can, we always talk about the trauma that informs our genes, but I'd like to add that there is joy and love and ecstasy and all of that, creativity, inventiveness, all of that is also coded into our genes and changes over the generations and passed down as new recipes. So I look for both.
Absolutely. And thank you for bringing that up, because of course I was just talking about trauma, but it's all memories, whether they're good or bad. So thank you so much for doing that. Now, if I can ask Charlotte, do you have anything else more that you would like to add to what Sue was saying? And from your perspective, what's the difference between cellular memory and our real memory?
I think traditionally, memory was thought to be stored in the brain, and purely in the brain, and it was a physical, storage system. But it didn't really explain some of the characteristics that we inherit. So that's where some scientists started to look at things like epigenetics, which we can talk about later, but that type of thing. Cellular memory from a materialistic scientific perspective is probably a little bit taboo still, because they think, as I say, it's located in the brain and the memories are just in the brain. Whereas actually what we find is that, especially with treating, I treat using traditional Chinese medicine philosophy. And in that philosophy, each of the organs is linked to an emotion. So, for example, the liver is linked to anger. So if somebody is constantly getting angry, irritated, frustrated over things happening in their life, if that goes on for quite some time, then what we find is that they can then develop diseases linked to that organ, linked to the liver. So they might have menstrual irregularities or pain, or they might find, because the eyes are linked to the liver, they might find that their eyes get red quite easily and they're not quite sure why. And it can work the other way as well, where you've got a physical problem or an ailment that is consistently present in your life for some time, and it can then spark anger in you or frustration. So I think those of us working in the field of spirituality and non-materialistic science realize or understand that there's more to memory than it just being physically present in the brain.
Good. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I've got, again, so much more that I'd like to go into with that. So we will come back. But before that, what about Beverly? I'd love to know your thoughts on the difference between cellular memory and, our memory in the memory cells in our brain, which is all cellular memory anyway. But what's your difference? And would you like to also share any examples for your own life where cellular memory has manifested?
Yeah. So first, the difference, because like all of you, I think we can agree that there is no separation between traditional concepts of memory and cellular memory. everything in us, our energy, our physical form, our mind form, it's all part and parcel. It winds in, it informs one side and the other. But for me, I look at traditional concepts of memory, and I go towards the philosophical side in Vedanta, which is thinking, feeling, willing memory. The memory is created by what you think about something. What you think informs how you feel about that thing. That feeling that occurs, then you take your free will and inform yourself based on what you thought, what you felt. Your free will now guides you to what you choose, and that creates the memory within. So the memories we have through our entire lives, or before we can think of them, it was informed by all these things. And we build on those memories, and we can transition those memories to what we like if we utilize our free will, if we can recognize the emotion, if we can recognize what we're thinking as that emotion occurs, we can shift and change. And I would say cellular memory is similar in the fact that it is in the body, down in those cells, some of parts of which are not even really human. Mitochondria come from an ancient form that was not human, but has wound itself into those cells. And very similarly, the things that our mothers or grandmothers, the lineage before us and the lineage that comes after us, there are things that occur to that cellular form, and those beings, let's call them mitochondria, these beings that are part of that, that are imprinted, that have to go through a process of creating themselves and thinking that something is important enough to hold. And then we place that within us, and we find ourselves reacting or running or getting happy or getting scared based on something inside. And for me, as a child, I very much remember there was things about nature, and whether that's lineage of my family or my lineage as part of nature, I would respond so intensely with such magnetic kind of draw towards something. I didn't have words for it. I didn't have reason for it, but I knew things, innately knew things, knew how something was feeling, knew how somebody else needed to be cared for or how to react without having this technical mind knowledge. I just knew. And that's always stayed with me. That has been a piece of me. And as life went on, I stopped listening, because you're told not to listen, which is why I now want people to listen. But the more I come into this work, the more I listen to that. And it's very rare that that sensation, not the thinking, but the sensation is right about what needs to happen, whether it is something to do with joy or trauma or anything else. There are these pieces within us that know, like a bird knows how to fly. The mothers might jump off a roof and say, hey, like this, but the birds know they have to fly or there's no existence. I think we also innately know that there are things we need to do. We know how to be safe. We cry when we're babies. We know once we can walk, how to run to somebody to be safe. We're not informed through words. We know innately that that has to happen. And to me, that's the difference, and that is also the experience of.
Thank you. Thank you. That's so true. You know, we have that innate memories that we carry with us. So thank you for sharing that. We'll go into more. Love to just move on again back to Dr. Simi, if I can ask you, because of your background, how, from your perspective again, how does the spiritual and the scientific world, I guess, integrate or diverge on this concept of cellular memory?
That's a beautiful question again. What is often not talked about, I feel, in order to bridge the gap between the science and spirituality, is really karma. And karma gets passed down from not only your past life karmas, the actions that you've done, but also your ancestral karma. Hence, I found in my personal experience, the advent, I guess you guys can call it, is DNA mutations, because the trauma is carried in the DNA. And that DNA gets passed down from generation to generation, hence the breast cancer gene and some of the other cancers genes. It simply is trauma. And the reason it gets passed down is because the moment we inherit that, I feel we are in that honorary position to be able to heal it if we have the consciousness. And so I've written a book and I talk about this in the book, is that our karma, the memory of the karma is stored in the cells. And what it does is it reduces the vibration of the cells. And in order for the cells to function at their optimum level, they need to vibrate at a higher frequency. And with karma, it's like a dross. It's a weight, it's baggage. It brings it down, so cells are not able to perform their function properly. And just want to touch on this. What really generates karma? It's that sense or that desire or that magnetic attraction for revenge. We oftentimes hold anger, blame, shame, resentment, and grievances. And one little story I can share with you is when I first started doing this work, I came across this 70-year-old gentleman who had a hernia repair surgery done. And lo and behold, he ended up at his 4th surgery because the wound wasn't healing. When I tuned into him, what I received was that he was holding anger towards his wife and that he needed to release that anger in order for the wound to heal. And the moment he did, the seroma healed. And as medical practitioners, we know the seromas take at least 3 to 4 months to heal at a minimum. And they do leave a disfiguring scar. So either way, most patients end up having surgery to either repair the scar or to help heal the wound to heal. In this gentleman, his seroma healed within 10 days once he released the anger towards his wife. So his desire for that revenge towards his wife was a karmic predicament that he was in. Once he released the anger, the karma stopped, and that's where self-love begins. And I'm tying the cellular memory in with self-love now. Once he began to love himself through the release of the anger, the cells responded to that. And voila, not only did he rekindle his relationship, but he healed. That's the power.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that, for sharing that. And yes, I personally believe that too, especially from my personal experience with being born in a body that has a genetic condition. When we go into karma and past life stuff and ancestral things, definitely. But we're not here to talk about me. We're talking about cellular memory and, how that affects us in our life. So, Sue, what about you? Let's go back to you. Do you have anything more that you would like to add to what Dr. Simi was saying? And I'd really like to go back into what you were talking about. You brought up about joy, cellular memory, about joy and everything else, not just trauma, but the happy stuff. I've heard that there is cells, like us, cells need food, and emotions are their food. And if they don't get that emotion, then they create situations to get that emotion, if that makes sense. Like whether it's for someone who's been really angry, but then is trying to overcome it, sometimes the situations occur to make us angry. And there is a belief that our cellular memory has created those situations. That would be the same for the other side, for positive emotions. So have you heard that concept, and how does that affect your life?
Well, first of all, I agree with Dr. Simi completely, that our emotions do impact and rewire our genes. And that happens through DNA. I'm not going to go into the science of it. I'm just going to go into the stories because people like stories way better than they like science. And I saw with my own mother that she had a very unique relationship with her mother. So she did everything she could to please her mother and take care of her mother and protect her mother and all that sort of stuff. And every time she got on the phone with her mother, she would break out in hives, literally, like hives everywhere, big, red, itchy, ugly hives. She never had a fight with her mother. She never had a disagreement with her mother. She adored her mother, but she held everything inside of her. Her mother never had a hive, not one hive in her entire life, but we don't know that her mother didn't have issues that somehow were expressed in my mother's reaction to her. I, on the other hand, as soon as I get emotional about something, even if I'm not expressing it, even if I'm especially if I'm repressing it and putting on, we can do all of this. We can make this thing happen. We can make this the best of the best. And my body reacts like my mother on steroids, like on woo. Like, so my mother would get the hives. I've got like 10 times the histaminic reactions to my emotional state. And I don't necessarily show them on the outside, but it's all going on the inside. So I have immune issues where my mother may not have presented immune, but I have autoimmune issues. So for me, it translated from my grandmother in one way to my mother. It changed her DNA sequence, her genes. They got passed on to me. And I'm seeing the same thing happening in my daughters, which happened to me. So it's going on with them. And I'm hoping that it'll stop with them and not be passed on to their kids. But their kids are already born and teenagers and all of that. So I think what I'm saying is that our bodies react and hold trauma much more easily and succinctly than it holds joy. It seems as if the joy has to be constantly repeated over and over and over again, where the trauma is so loud that the electrical impulses in our body, the electrical currents, fry our cells, fry the proteins, fry all the bits and pieces that make up those cellular changes that change the template that cause our illnesses, our behaviors. As Dr. Simi was saying, we are genetically wired to have certain behaviors in certain situations. And until, as she says, we become, and as each of these other wonderful women, Charlotte and Beverly, also said, unless we change our awareness of our reactions in those kinds of repetitive situations that show up randomly, we don't plan for them to happen, they happen. But unless we become aware of our reactions to them, we can't change them. We can't change our reactions. When we start to change our reactions, we're changing the electrical impulses that go into our cells, into our genes, and rewiring the genes. We're changing the template. So I don't know if I just answered your question and went on a long rambling ramble.
You did, and you answered some more questions too. Thank you. My question was going to be for Charlotte or Beverly or Dr. Simi or anyone. Going on from what you're saying, Sue, and thank you for sharing your journey, that gets passed down through generations. How can we change that? Is it possible to change cellular memories before it's passed down to further generations or, on the journey? Who would like to, has anyone got an answer to that? Okay, is it possible?
You want to go, Charlotte? Or?
Okay. Absolutely. And I think that's the exciting thing about the field of epigenetics, because, we're sort of seem to be going past genetic determinism, where, the genes are responsible for absolutely everything and are the controllers of our life. And so basically we have no choice and we have no chance of changing, to understanding that actually there's more to it. And with epigenetics, you've got, those small molecular factors that are, close to the DNA, and they help to sort of regulate the DNA. And the exciting thing is those factors can be influenced by our lifestyle, what we do, our emotions, how we feel. So absolutely, I think science is showing us now more and more that what we knew in the first place, actually, really, from a spiritual perspective, that absolutely we can change things. And also, I think it depends how you see memory, or cellular memory as well, because some scientists feel that, for example, Dr. Bruce Lipton feels that cellular memory is probably not the best terminology, purely because he feels that the memory is actually in the field, is in consciousness. Which is a really fantastic, I think it's an exciting concept and theory. So it's more like, instead of having a DVD inside us, whether it's in our head or our bodies or whatever, where, we've got all the memories laid down there from the past and from our ancestors, we're actually more like a mobile phone or a TV set, where we actually ourselves have receptors or self-receptors, and they're like antenna, and they go up and they sort of can, pick up frequencies and information from the field, which is really, really exciting. And lastly, I'll just talk about one other scientist who I find his work very exciting myself, is Rupert Sheldrake, who thinks that memory is linked to morphic resonance. So if you're resonating with your past self, you remember what you did in the past. If you resonate with a group of people, then you can actually tap into that collective memory, and it transcends space and time, which means that I can give a healing to somebody in Japan, and they feel the energy changes. And traditionally you'd think, well, that's bonkers. You have to be in the same room, surely, but you don't. So I think that, yes, of course we can change things. And I think that the more we know about how these things work, the more opportunity we have to transcend our problems, our issues of ancestral inheritances.
Thank you for sharing. Wonderful. Beverly, what about you?
You just made a few things click for me. Thanks, Charlotte. And I love all of you have referenced some people I adore. So I just had a thought. It's how I express to a lot of the people I work with what memory is when we're talking memory, mind memory. It's simply a perspective. It's not the truth. It is your truth based on what was going on for you in a moment, and that becomes a memory. But if I was to stand beside somebody and we both stare at the same place and there was something happening, my memory, their memory are going to be completely different memories. Just because we're in the same time frame, in the exact same position, does not mean what we remember will be the same based on our whole lives. That's what references it. That's that thinking, feeling, memory, willing memory. And I'm thinking of cells now in that same framework, and kind of what Charlotte was just talking about is same thing. Cellular memory is going to be based on perspective, but a different framework of perspective. It's not the thinking and the feeling. It is a perspective of time and space, of energy. Our entire skin is an organ that is a cellular organ, and it's reading senses. So I guess what I'm thinking is that it's our senses that are the antenna that reference it. So we have our consciousness on one side and our senses drawing experience on the other side. And somewhere in between, they all form. I mean, it's been proven that sound, creating different sounds, can change the cellular body, can change our DNA. It has been proven through many research projects, not that there's a lot of them, but the things that we do, how we think, how we meditate, can change your DNA. can reshape it, reform it. You look at the sand that vibrates on those trees. I always forget what it's called, where they take the sand and they vibrate at different frequencies, and the sand takes on these perfect forms, always a perfect form, sometimes a cross, sometimes these magical, beautiful patterns. But what frequency are we vibrating at? How can we change the cell based on what everyone's said here, the energy of what we're doing? Not everything is a trauma, but it doesn't mean that even the good things we don't want to shift and change or take and utilize to create something even larger. So how do you reference it? You stop thinking. That has its place, but we start feeling, we start allowing experience in, start teaching people, teaching each other, teaching ourselves how to start from the internal. In the karma that Simi was talking about, Dr. Simi, was karma is this thing that comes with us. It's tied in. We are energy beings. My belief is we are Atma, and Atma does not die. It's the root word of atomic. Indestructible, undestroyable. Okay, so if I've come in, but in that atomic form, the cells that gather around, that are so attracted, that gather around, some of them have the possibility of becoming cancer. Some of them have the possibility of becoming other things. It's then my choice. There's that free will that might not be thought through. There's a choice of whether or not I'm going to resonate on the level that's going to impact those cells that could be something to grow and be destructive, or impact the other cells that can grow and be this positive, absolute influence on myself and everything around me. So I'm kind of like Sue. I'm not sure if I just went off into some wonderful little tangent, but I'm just following the thought that happened when Charlotte was speaking. It was like, oh.
You've gone off some tangent, Beverly. Thank you. You've basically answered all my questions.
Oh,
which is wonderful. So I just like to thank you. And I'm going, yep, we were just getting yep, and then you answered. So thank you for that. Sue, yes.
Could I jump in and offer something here? We've been talking about all these wonderful things that happen to us in our cells and our cellular memories and all of that. And I know you're going to ask this question, but if I can, I'm just going to give you the answer right now.
Answer it now, yes.
Okay. So I'd like to just kind of list, and not go into how you do it, 5 simple techniques for assessing and healing cellular memory. Okay, just 5 simple ones. Somatics is first. That's the body sensation, reading your body sensation, getting used to it, creating a little manual of what body sensation represents what warning, or which warning to which situation. So I got a feeling here that my throat is closing, and that shows up when somebody threatens me in some way. That's a cellular memory primitive that says, danger, pay attention, and they grab my attention by closing my throat. So somatics, learning how to loosen up those reactions. And there are exercises, somatic exercises that I'm not going to go into, that do that. That's number 1. Number 2 would be meditation and mindfulness, paying attention to what's going on around you. So you begin to read what I call reading the wind, and just read your environment. Pay attention to it, and then ask, what is that about? Because it's your body that's reacting to the environment. Again, bringing us back to somatics. The third one is EFT, tapping. Tapping changes up the electrical frequencies in your body. It changes up how energy moves around your body. It changes up what Dr. Simi was saying, the slowness or the fastness. Is it a slow energy or a fast energy? So that's 3. Okay. Then, of course, there's breath work, which has become such a huge thing in the past couple of years. So valuable for changing our traumatic experiences into something else. The breath work gives us the pause to figure out what we want to do with what our body is doing in that situation. And the last piece is just so ordinary, boring. Journal. Whatever you experience, write it down, give it a date, talk about the situation, what your body felt, what you did to do something about it, and what changed. That's it. That's my 5.
Thank you. Thank you
And
for the next question.
and that's actually what I do with all my clients as an empath trainer, moving them out of burnout and out of overwhelm. I walk them through whatever works. They don't get all 5. They get one little teeny piece. And when they're done with that, they'll move on to something else. So that's welcome.
Welcome. All right, and Charlotte, do you have any tips or any other tips or techniques that we can use to help heal, not just, I'd say, not to, well, to heal our cellular memories, but also to create or to release more joyful memories?
Well, I use healing for that. So either hypnotherapy or healing, which allows the brain to decrease in terms of the speed of brain waves. So once you get down to, the theta level, then you can start clearing, some of those patterns and things like that. Also, actually, I remember I was treating a client who always got angry, always got frustrated and angry about things, and yet her life had actually transformed in the last few years. So she, for example, had met her ideal partner. They were engaged. They were just about to be married. Financially, she was very well off. She had a beautiful home. They had a beautiful home. She was working in the way she wanted to. She had freedom, and yet she could not escape from feeling irritable about things and angry about things. So we worked with energy on her liver for about, 30 minutes or something like that. And at the end of it, because of clearing those blocks, she no longer could access or feel that anger. It had completely gone. So healing is a very good way to do it. I also think a fantastic way is to really look at your issues before you go to sleep. Now, that sounds strange because you look at your issues and then you can't sleep. I know. But maybe you could have some herbal medicine or, something to relax you so you will fall asleep afterwards. But anyway, look at your issues. And as you're drifting down or drifting off, ask for them to be released. Because as you float down, into, again, alpha, through the alpha brainwaves to the theta brainwaves, down into delta when you're sleeping and storing away nicely, they will help to clear those cellular memories. So, yeah, there are many different ways to do it. I actually do find that when I'm helping people to clear cellular memories with healing, it's really helpful for them to be supported with herbs as well. So I use herbs and I use essential oils because they've got something to take before maybe they see me next time, or while they're doing their exercises, while they're doing their breathing, that actually seems to speed up the process, and it really supports their nervous system and supports them being able to release the emotions that are sometimes really stressful to release.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And for everyone who's listening, do click on the links below and connect with Charlotte. There's definitely some healing and more herbals things as well advice. So thank you for that, Charlotte. And Dr. Simi, I'd really like to ask you, as a medical practitioner, and I don't know, how do you find as a medical practitioner when patients come to see you for whatever complaint that they have? How do you go about, healing cellular memories when they have a physical complaint?
That's a difficult one because most people just want that quick fix. Give me some antibiotics, hey, I've got a flight to catch and I've got a cold. You expect me to do what? Having said that, the tool that I have more often used is the inner child work. It is so potent and so powerful. I mean, literally within minutes, not only are they shifting their emotions, but they're healing, and I'm empowering them with what to do next time it happens, like the sense of empowerment rather than depending on something outside of you. So that's my biggest passion, is to help to empower people. How do you begin to tune into the body? So what I want to say is, yes, this memory stuff is all connected. We know that. And our body, even though I know we're referring to it here separately, our body is an extension of our subconscious and our unconscious mind. Whatever's happening in here is happening in subconscious and the unconscious mind. Now, let's look at the working definition a little bit. The mind is not the brain. The mind is an abstract concept. It is simply a vehicle for the sea of consciousness to deliver information to our physical bodies. So unless we can, and I mean, I don't mean to undermine anyone here. I'm just sharing my experience. We can work on the cellular level till the cows come home. But until that mind heals, until the mind decides to shift that perception, the healing's not going to happen. That's just what I've witnessed over the last 12 years. Meaning it's important because what happens is when we experience trauma, that's when we get a formation of the inner child. When we experience trauma, the imprint of that memory of that trauma gets stored in our energy field electronically. And every time we encounter that same frequency of energy, it's going to cause the same symptoms if we haven't healed the mind. The body will remain. That's why cancer comes back even after chemo. And that's why these things are harder to treat, because we're not accessing the mind. So yes, we can, like I said, delineate between the mind and the cellular and all that, but ultimately it's all a reflection of the mind, every little bit. So when we do the inner child work, what happens is integration. When we begin to integrate and assimilate, those memories automatically get integrated. And actually, I believe it's Dr. Andrew Weil, who talks about the implicit and explicit memories in the brain. And he talks about when we can be in the present moment, there is something that happens between the amygdala and the hippocampus. And when you're in the present moment, there's something happens between the two where you're able to now release the memory. That's, to me, true healing. And when we can empower our clients, our patients with how do we begin to tune into that, right? For me, that modality has been the inner child work, hands down. And every single time it's worked like a charm. And the healing is permanent because we're dealing at the level of the mind and shifting that perception. I hope that answers the question.
That does. That does, definitely. I was just sitting here and can you imagine the world if we had a lot more Dr. Simis, if we could clone Dr. Simi, and yes, imagine, I can just imagine the world, how different we would all be. Thank you for sharing that so very much. Beverly, what about you? Do you have any further tips or techniques that you
yeah. Like there's been such wonderful shares, and I like what Simi was just saying, and I'm going to slightly, it's not even a disagree, and just reframe it, my reframing for myself. I absolutely agree. The mind, that thinking, feeling, willing, memory, it's not the brain, it's the mind, gets in the way of everything. We need to find those memories and change. Where I would slightly change is how you're saying it was that. And what I do when I'm working with people, I really do start with the physical, then the energetic, then the mind. We can't, it's hard, you want to tell somebody sit down and meditate. Well, that's great and fine and dandy. It's wonderful for the mind. But if their body is in pain, their body is uncomfortable, then sitting and meditating isn't going to really work too well, possibly. So it's getting the physical, the cellular body to connect, to feed that. Well, it's the food people put in. There is enough research out there now too that finally agrees with all the Eastern medicines and the past philosophies that the food you put in has an effect on the mind. So if somebody's mind, their memories are just pulling them in so many directions, and these horses are out of control, and the mind, which is the driver of the horse, is not you, but it's the driver. You're supposed to be telling where to go, the driver thinks it's in control, then it could run you off a cliff. But if you're feeding this physical, beautiful vessel that you're existing within, and all the cells of this body are fed, all the bacteria and all the little beings, all the fungi, all have the sources they need to create the proteins, to create the neural networks, to create the pathways, then the mind can now start to change its form, its reference points. There can be suggestion offered. There can be a different way of being offered that it can, let's call it hear, that it can enable itself to follow. So you start with that physical meat body with the food, but the food isn't the only thing. The food is what repairs the pathways, repairs the ability to be there. And then you get into the movements. Like, how are you sitting all day? If you're sitting all day, no cell is there's no energy. There's no movement, nothing to fire, nothing to express itself. So figure out movements that work. Not everyone's going to run a marathon. Maybe it's walk around the block. Maybe it's go dance. Maybe it's something that feeds that part of the soul. Then what feeds the energy? Is it meditation? Is it walking quietly through the trees? Is it sitting and listening to the water? Help people, each individual, unique being, find that thing that feeds them. So again, the mind can become a little quieter, less obsessed with what it thinks is memory, more able to see what's true in the now, what's true for this being living in here. And you keep flowing through. So I use stuff like that, breath, as somebody else, I think it was Simi was saying, Sue was saying, breath work, journaling, because journaling is kinesthetic. You write, if you actually write, especially cursive, not printing, but write, there is a pattern that comes out of the cellular body, or it can also help the internal cellular body. Write the things, write beautiful things to yourself, and they start imprinting themselves. Listen to beautiful music. I do craniosacral therapy because I want to help shift the energy flow. I teach people how to tremor, to shake it out. If anybody knows Dr. Bercelli, it's like let the stuff come out that you don't need to hold on to anymore. Shake itself free. We're told as kids, sit still, lock it in, buck up. What's wrong with you? Instead, it's like go wild, shake. So there's all these things that can be done, but it has to be an individual thing, and it has to start with a thing that helps feed each level of our being and then feed backwards. So it becomes this wonderful flowing pattern between every part of us.
Right. Yeah, thank you for, can I add something to that? Thank you. I think it's beautiful. And I don't feel it's reframing. I feel it's addition. It's an addition to what I was saying. Absolutely. And I do want to say that I heard about this great healer, Hannah Kroger, who actually is right here in Boulder, was here back in the 90s. Beautiful healer. And there was usually a line of people wrapping around the block waiting to see her. And she taught one thing. She said, break the cycle. Break the cycle somewhere, whether it's physical, whether it's emotional, whether it's mental, whether it's spiritual, break the cycle. And I wholeheartedly agree with dietary changes, because so you have to see this is all divine energy. We're divine beings. And in order for us to become superconductors of the electricity that this divinity is, we have to prepare our bodies, especially with the vitamins and minerals that help us to conduct this electricity, magnesiums and the B12s and the B complexes. What I want to say, give an example of, in my experience, because I was a regular meditator for about 10 years. And what I learned was that meditation is a beautiful tool, as Beverly said, and it's just the training to the marathon. The actual marathon is the inner child work, bringing awareness to what is. And I've had people with chronic migraines coming in, and as I lead them through the process of the inner child work without making any changes to their food or, bringing awareness to meditation, they walked out of my office pain-free, simply tuning into their emotions. And yes, whilst it's hard to tune into that emotion while you're in pain, but it's also a great motivator. Okay, what can I do? What do you need me to do? Right? And oftentimes I do feel that life brings us these these instances, the pain, whatnot, so we can evolve. So with the inner child work, it's not just releasing the pain or the illness, but it's actually a process of awakening. It's a process of transformation and ascension.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you for sharing.
I think that's also the, sorry, Sue, you go first.
No,
I
go
think
ahead,
it's
Charlotte.
also the same with healing. You're saying the inner child work, but the same thing. People can come in with a headache and they go out without, the headache's gone by the time they leave. So very similar sort of result, even though different process. And also very quickly, Beverly, when you were talking about writing, sometimes I get people to write with their non-dominant hand, because that also really helps to bring through the unconscious programming and things like that. And lastly, I remember when I was in London, I went to have some singing lessons and a few times, and I couldn't believe it. This lady, the singing teacher, she actually got behind me and actually put her arms just around my ribs, actually. And then she shook me, so almost quite violently, actually, but shook me. And then I had to make these sounds as she was shaking me like this. And I had to sort of, do the sound of a violin and then an oboe and this, that, and the other. But actually, it really shook free a lot of the restraints that were actually preventing me from really singing. So yes, it just reminded me of that, Beverly, when you talked about that.
Thank you for sharing that, Charlotte. And Sue, let's finish up with you, if that's okay, because
Sure.
we are now at the end of our hour. I wish we could go on. We need to have part 2, invite everyone back. The hour goes very quickly. So let's finish up with you, and then please share a little bit about what you offer and how people can contact you.
Okay. So I'd like to support what Dr. Simi was saying about the inner child and how we have to deal with the inner child pieces of what's informing our genetic memory if we are to release what we need to release in order to move forward. Now, I've got an example of that where I was working with a woman just turning 40, and she had a lot of trauma in her life. She came in with 5 separate inner children that her therapist said was not schizophrenia. It was actually 5 traumatic periods in her life where the child got stuck there. And what she actually ended up doing, she did end up releasing all of them, merging them into an adult reaction to her life. It took almost a year of working with me every week to do that. But what happened was that her biggest holdback was that one of the inner children said, if you release me, I will die. I will no longer have a presence in the world through you. My voice won't be heard again. And so we worked with that to get to a point where her inner children, that particular inner child, allowed itself to be released, but not through death. And it was an incredible journey that she and I had over this time period. She was working with her psychiatrist and with me at the same time. And the psychiatrist said that she had to release the inner children before she could heal. But she couldn't do it with the psychiatrist. She had to find another way. So we worked with the energetics of it all, plus the life coaching, plus her therapist, her psychiatrist working with her from another direction to make it all coalesce. It isn't just one practitioner that will help a person to release their epigenetic memories. It's the village. So thank you. So you asked me to tell you what it is that I do and what if I have an offer. Do I have an offer for everybody? I'm so excited about my offer. So I am a professional life coach. I have been for 18 years. One of the first when they started bringing out life coaches, nobody knew what they were. Now everybody has a coach for everything. So basically, I work with highly sensitive empaths, people who read their environment overwhelms them, and I teach them the energetics of brain science using vibrational thought messages to calm their body, use through their through their nervous system, broadcasting out to calm their environment. So everybody around them calms down. Everybody gets calm and things begin to change. So that is the work that I do as a professional outside of Sacred You. Inside of Sacred You, I am a tribe host. My tribe is called Life Force Activators, and I play with all the woo-woo stuff there. We have fun. We do out-of-body travel. We do shielding. We do energetic masks. We do time lords. The past month and a half, we've been working on being time lords, how we slow time down or speed time up to fit what we need at that time. So we do a lot of unusual, not before spoken about things, and we just have a lot of fun with it, and it changes lives. So my offer is that I'm offering two different things at the moment. If you are a social worker, I just finished an empath shielding basics workshop that was 7 sessions. I'm offering again empath shielding basics, but this time for social workers and counselors. If somebody is listening to this or watching this replay and you happen to be an overwhelmed, on the verge of burnout social worker or counselor, and your shielding isn't working for you, find me, email me, DM me on Facebook, find me. We will have a conversation to see what fits you. If you fit the workshops, fantastic. I'll make you an offer. If not, we'll find another way to make it work for you. So that's offer number 1, social workers and counselors, empath shielding basics. My second offer is for any career woman who is struggling through divorce. It's one-on-one, crack the divorce code, elite mentorship. Again, email me or find me on DM in Facebook. We will have the conversation and create your next steps. So the conversation is free, no charge. After that, whatever comes up, comes up. So those are my 2 offers. You'll find me at overwhelmmasterclasses.com. That information is in the comments below. And that's all about me. On to the next lady.
Thank you for that. And yes, all your details are in the comments below for anyone who's watching the live or the replay. And I thoroughly recommend reaching out to Sue. Incredible amount of wisdom. And come and join the tribe, which we'll talk about soon. Beverly, what about your beautiful self? Tell us a little bit about you, if you have any offers.
Yeah, so what I'm doing right now, and as Sophia knows, it's been a bunch of 16 months of dealing with my sister's estate stuff since she died last year, which is also one of my reasons for what I do. My sister died of pancreatic cancer. My father died of pancreatic cancer. My mother had breast cancer. My uncle has bone cancer. My brother-in-law has rectal cancer. I landed on a cardiac unit in my 40s, and I think this is a ridiculous way for us to think life should be. I really do. I think there's a far better way of being. So through Rhythm of Your Life, my goal is, especially with women, I work with men as well, but especially with women over 40, I want to help them return to the life they were meant to be experiencing. We all have the things we're meant to learn, but it's all those childhood things. All our inner children gather and say, no, 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 it's this. And we are available to so much more. Life was simply there to give us the lessons to help us be everything we're meant to be. And it's time. So I work with them on finding the rhythms. Rhythm is rhythms, the underlying laws of nature that govern everything that is material, including us. So I have programs working one-on-one with them, and I also do group programs. I'm an author and speaker. I speak on stages. I run retreats. This is my only why for the rest of my life. This is it. This is why I was put on this earth, and this is how it will be. My offer to anyone right now is I normally just speak with me for an hour, and that's always available. Anyone can go to my website, rhythmofyourlife.com, and connect with me. And if you say Sacred You in the subject line, we can spend an hour together and I can help support you starting your journey. But I also have decided what I want to do is anyone who is part of Sacred You or who would like to join Sacred You, if they can tell me that they're part of Sacred You, you'll receive 20% off any work that you do with me. And I can do it remotely anywhere in the world. You have everything you need. I'm just a guide. I'm not your person who's going to tell you what to do. I'm going to suggest and support you on the journey. I'm also, because of this journey with my sister, been unable to get my tribe started, but in 1 month I will be complete, free of travel to another place. And my tribe will be starting, and it's going to be called Sacred Living. So I'm looking forward to it, and I hope to have everyone stop by and say hi. Okay, thank you.
We'll be looking forward to it too, and just in time for Harmony Fest, which will be wonderful, which will start very soon. Charlotte, what about you? Do you have any offers that you'd like to share?
I think anybody who's interested in working with me, then I'm really happy to give 10% off if you'd like to just contact me on info@consummatehealth.com.
Yes, thank you. And all those links are down below. Thank you for that. And Dr. Simi, what about you?
You know, I just released my book called Raising the Inner Child, and I'm still in the making of, my workshops and stuff. I haven't quite developed what I would like to develop. So what I would like to offer is a free consultation if you have a medical issue and would like to talk about the underlying emotional cause of that issue and want to heal it from that perspective. And that consultation is normally $100, and for half an hour, and I'm willing to just hop on a call and take however long it takes to help you offer some clarity. And I also have a free guided inner child meditation on my website at www.drsimysays.com. That's DRSIMISAYS.com. Thanks.
Thank you ever so much. And thank you, ladies or women, amazing women who have come to share your wisdom and your knowledge and your passion on all things about cellular memory, whether the negative, the trauma, or the joy and everything else, and how we can heal it. I have really, really enjoyed it, and it's been an honor to be chatting with you today. And like I said, I'd love you all to come back. But before we wrap up, just very quickly from Sacred You, just coming up next week, Beverly is joining us again for Cosmic Alchemy. It's written in the stars. That's coming up in a week's time, I do believe. So I'm
It'd be fun.
For that. And do click on the links below for anyone who is watching the live or the replay. Come and join Sacred You. We're your spiritual family. That's just one click away. We hold all sorts of panel discussions and have numerous tribes, including Sue's Life Force
Activators. Yeah.
Very soon, Beverly's Sacred Living. Oh my God, I'm looking forward to that. And so many other ones. We've got tribes on empowerment, on metaphysical, on the spiritual, on holistic well-being, all sorts of things. Come and join us just for $1, $1 US. You get to try out the tribes for 2 weeks. Any of the tribes that you want to try, and then after that we have different levels of membership depending on what you would like, but we can certainly talk about that and discuss that. The other thing that I will share before we leave is coming up in September, we have Harmony Fest, 3 days of online experiences where we will have stall holders on all different fields in spirituality, in holistic well-being, all sorts of that, as well as simultaneous masterclasses and any online healers or readers. All that will be available. Do click on the links on the website if you're interested in participating in Harmony Fest. Do come and join us. All the details are below and on our website. So thank you ever so much, everyone, for joining us. Like I said, it's been a wonder, and I look forward to seeing everyone next time.